Difficult Realities is an Elite City Media podcast. If you're interested in more information, make sure you follow us on Twitter at DifficultPod. Subscribe to our official YouTube channel, and keep your eyes open wherever you listen to podcasts for more episodes. No matter what you're listening on, make sure you turn on notifications so you always know when a new episode is posted. And most importantly, remember that while this is an opinion-based podcast, it is also backed up by evidence and facts. Or in other words, this podcast is Difficult Realities. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again to Difficult Realities, a podcast on the state of the United States. I am Swerve, and joining alongside, as always, to my left is the wonderful Spittin'.
What's up, y'all?
And to my right is the massive Yeti.
How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. I hope you guys are doing well too, and I hope everybody out there who's listening is doing well. We want to thank everybody who's been directing traffic our way lately, whether that be on our YouTube channel or our Twitter account, which has gotten quite a lot of attention. And a couple polls we put up lately. I want to thank everybody who participated in those, and an extra special thank you to all the people who vigorously pointed out to us that communism is the result of socialism. I didn't know that until all 70 plus of you told me, so thank you so very much for that. Today on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be talking about three things. Originally, it was only two topics, but with the literal minutes ago announcement of the resigning of Governor Cuomo from New York, we have to shoehorn this third topic in, but I think it'll go just fine, as do most of our conversations. So today we're going to be talking about Governor Cuomo's resigning due to his misconduct and the findings of the independent investigation, as well as our original topics, which were the housing and eviction moratorium crisis and Apple's new ability to break into your technology and look at your shit. So if you have interest in those topics, strap in. Spittin' has particularly prepared for this eviction topic, and I would also probably like to talk about some of the history of housing discrimination as we go along. But as we get into this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn the microphone over to these two. We'll start with Spittin'. How are you doing today, brother?
Oh man, I'm doing fantastic. Like any day. Crazy ass sexual molester like Andrew Cuomo resigns from his position, I get a little extra pep in my step.
That's right. Now I gotta ask, how many now do Trump tweets did you sift through in the last 25 to 30 minutes?
Oh, bro. Today actually has been now do Matt Gaetz.
Oh yeah. And as if there wasn't like protests in the street, dude. Out,
That Trump shit, man. Just like, oh God, I don't know. Maybe I've blocked all those people or something.
Well, it is truly amazing how people think that whenever a Democrat is, and I mean, this is true of Republicans too, because they do it the other way as well. It's truly remarkable how people think that if a politician on their side is taken down, replying with, but what about this guy on the other side who has equal or greater than sexual assault cases, is a defense of their guy. That's an amazing mindset.
It is. It's like you point out that, like, somebody will be like, yeah, now do Trump. And then I'll be like, what about these 11 women? This isn't about blue and red necessarily, right? And
this is about legality.
Like, and then I'll always get back, Trump had 27 accusers.
Yeah, well, this isn't like...
It's like, well, then it's 38 total. I don't know what the hell
38 total women have a problem. And, it's funny. It's funny, like, when you put it that way, too, because these people had no problem telling me that 14 plus 6 equals 20, or in this case, 1,400 plus 600 equals $2,000 when it came to the stimulus. But they can't see how 23 plus 11 is 34 when it comes to sexual assault victims. It's the same fucking mentality. It's all about defending your side. And I
Yeah,
think, go ahead, Yeti. Yeah, go ahead.
No, what I think it is they always want to have the moral high ground,
That's a good point.
but they don't. That's the problem. In their mind, they have a moral high ground, but in reality, they're exactly the same, right?
There's a ton of people out there.
They look like the most evil people in the world, man.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
It's disgusting.
My guy's sexual assault is better than your guy's.
I mean,
And then you blow their mind when you say, "But I didn't vote for Trump."
Yep.
Just like with you earlier, in response to the one lady saying, what did she say? Refresh my memory on that.
Yeah. So basically, I was in a thread about the Cuomo stuff, and I don't remember. Let me just let's pull it up, because I would rather just give you the correct reading of what transpired. But basically, the long short of it was me telling a person that, you know, they're not, it was the same kind of thing we're talking about, how we're not defending Trump here when we call out people who, you know, if we're calling out Biden accusers or Cuomo accusers or Democratic accusers in general, here it is. All right, so I can stop stalling. It was actually a Tara Reid thread talking about Tara Reid. So I'm glad we pulled it up, because I would have totally misinformed everybody. It was in a Tara Reid thread, which if you don't know who Tara Reid is, how do you not know? The person who accused Biden of basically, not to get too graphic, but like entering her without her permission, right? And she was quote tweeting a journalist who was talking about the allegations by her against Biden, where he says, "I've always had trouble believing it, both because it seemed thinly corroborated and because no other women have come forward to allege similar behavior, as opposed to the 11 women in Cuomo's file." Now, you could talk about the corroboration as much as you want, because I think that's a farce. I think it has definitely been corroborated. Let me just use proper words and pronounce things correctly. And this woman, that's right. And this woman came in, and I'm not going to read the handle. I'm not trying to put people on blast. Came in and said, "I doubt it happened. It was 30 years ago. Time to move on," which is the most Republican response to rape I can imagine. Somebody else said, "You'd tell your daughter the same thing?" And she said, "Do your daughters know that you support Trump?" And what I hit her with was, "Do Trump supporters deserve to get raped?" Because if she
Did you ever
answers,
respond to that?
she did not. I mean, I had no expectation of her ever responding to that, because that's the zinger. That's the gotcha. Because if she says yes, then she admits her hand that the moral supremacy is not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about what's right and what's wrong. We're not talking about what's ethical and what's unethical. We're not talking about what's legal and what's not legal. We're talking about what's a Democrat and what's a Republican. So she can't admit to that, because her position falls apart immediately. If she says, "Yeah, Trump supporters do deserve to get raped," then you're morally inferior to all of us, and you deserve whatever subsequent treatment you get from that. And if she says no, then she admits that, okay, so we're agreeing here that rape is bad regardless of who the victim is and who the assaulter is. And that nullifies her position, because if she agrees to that, well, then it doesn't really matter how many people, you know, Trump raped, or whether or not they support Trump, or whether or not people calling out Biden is a calling out of an honest, whatever. It doesn't matter, because anybody who's a victim of rape deserves justice, and anybody who's a rapist deserves persecution. So that was a zinger. And I did that on purpose, because it's the most succinct way that you can sort of hit these people. And you could flip it and put, "Do Biden supporters deserve to get raped too?" if a Republican does the same thing. Because again, this isn't about whose side we're on, or you know, like which politicians we like and which ones we don't. I'm trying to point out at large and in grandiose that this is not how we argue things. This is not how anybody argues things. If you're going to talk about rape, you got to talk about it in a universal justice-based context, where the perpetrator and the victim are irrelevant to the outcome.
Yes.
And that's all that it really came down to. And I'm not talking about this also because I do think a lot of people, to your point earlier, Yeti, I think a lot of people are on here not just for have moral high ground, but for the clout of talking about issues as opposed to actually wanting to solve the issues. I think there's a shit ton of people, and I would probably guess that some of our critics would accuse us of that. But I think there's a shit ton of people out there who feel like getting on Twitter and ratioing somebody is as good as passing universal health care, or going out and, you know, marching for something or campaigning for something. So I think a lot of people get on Twitter and they flex their like Joe Biden muscles or their Donald Trump muscles, and then they get off Twitter and they're like, I'm as useful as Gandhi. Like, and I think social media has really bred that culture, unfortunately.
I have saved the world today. It's like the reverse of Binky and the Brain.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do today? We're gonna save the world.
On Twitter.
That's fair. It's the only way I'm saving the world at this point, so.
Although, if you're to believe the climate documents that have come out lately, I don't think anybody can save it at this point.
Oh Jesus, that's.
Oh, don't get me started.
But we're gonna do a climate episode, so I won't get you started today. But to get back to the topic at hand here, guys, for those of you who don't know, Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, is officially announcing his resignation. It will take place 14 days from today, which is August 10th, 2021. So 14 days from the time that this goes live, Governor Cuomo will no longer be governor of New York. Now, the reason for this is because recently an independent investigation determined 11 different cases of sexual harassment and sexual assault. 11 total. So that's pretty fucked, no matter what side you're on. I understand everybody out there who genuinely says, like, hey, let's get due process and everything, because, yeah, that is important. But an independent investigation is due process. It is a group from the outside who has no interest, left or right, coming in, analyzing evidence, testimony, documentation, whatever the case, and returning after a vigorous investigation with the information that, yes, these cases are confirmed. So at that point, you don't just get to come in and be like, okay, well, there was no due process. We're literally seeing the results of the due process. This is the due process happening.
This is what
in
an
front
investigation is due process.
Yeah. Now, if you want to talk about whether or not he goes to court, that's the straw man that a lot of people will use to defend him. But that's only the case if they choose to pursue legal action as a result of this, right?
I don't think there's a judge in New York that would be able to convict him.
And that's the thing. So they're not going. A lot of these women, and that's another like deflection that people will use, is if these are real accusations, why don't these women press charges? Because if these women go to lawyers, these lawyers aren't going to lie to them and be like, oh, we have a great case here, when we don't. The truth of someone committing an action is independent from whether or not there is enough evidence of that action to convict. That is a very important distinction. Somebody can commit a crime and be convicted of a lesser crime, but not be convicted of the crime they committed. Take, for example, Casey Anthony. Everybody knows who Casey Anthony is, right?
Yeah.
Kid killer.
Yeah, exactly. So we all know, everybody knows, she killed that little girl. Everybody knows it.
Yeah, that was kind of like the O.J. Simpson case.
Yeah, but the court proved reasonable doubt, so she was not able to be convicted of that bigger crime. She got convicted of smaller crimes and had to do smaller sentences and had repercussions for those. I think I just made up another word, repercussions for those. But she was not convicted of the primary crime that she was accused of. However, we all know that she did it, right? This situation, Governor Cuomo, would be even less of that. There would be less evidence. There would be less acceptable courtroom evidence. There would be less testimony. There would be less issues here. So it would be slam dunk that Cuomo would get off on all of these charges, especially because a lot of them are technically hearsay. You know, I was in this room with nobody else present, and this is what happened. How do you really prove that?
Well, and I'm sorry, and especially since Bill Cosby just got let go.
Yeah. And I mean, Bill Cosby had more evidence on him than Cuomo could fucking wet dream. Like, that guy there was so many cases with so much evidence and so much there that they actually had a case against him. And he wasn't convicted on all of the charges, but he was convicted on quite a few of them, including some of the more substantial ones. And Bill Cosby got let out because of a legal technicality. There's no way that Cuomo would go to jail over this. So there's no point in pursuing the legal action because it's going to be moot. It's not about like whether or not these women deserve justice, because they do, but what you deserve and what you would get are not the same by any stretch of the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the result. This is the due process. as best we can expect it, is the results of the investigation. You can't always expect legal consequence in terms of will somebody go to jail or not. It's not always as simple as that.
They
Well, and
still
removing
sue
a
him,
guy.
though, right?
Oh yeah, they can sue.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, they can try.
And that's what I'm kind of getting at, is it might not work. It's only be a waste of time.
But removing a guy with this type of ego from power is
It's
the
not nothing.
equivalent of putting him behind bars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he'd flourish behind bars, like a Rob Blagojevich. You know?
Yeah. He'd have all kinds of
he
privates.
flourished behind bars.
Yeah.
And Cuomo would be the same way. He'd have his own special fucking wing of the jail, and
private yard
he'd get
time,
special food. He'd be able to have conjugal visits. It wouldn't. I mean, it would just
TV
be
in a cell.
It would be a Pablo Escobar walk in the park.
It'd be club fed, like Longshore. You know,
It's
same
where
way
you
with
walk into the jail
Trump.
cell and there's a door at the back, and it just walks into your
like
house.
with Epstein. But same way with Trump. You know, like
Trump would have the time of his life in jail.
Well, but he is in jail right now. You know what I mean?
He's in Trump
taken
jail.
off his platform, being removed from office. He's in his own personal kind of jail, like a rich person's jail. You know, like he's just, and that's the way Cuomo is going to be. Like what's he going to do, man? The guy that gave him an Emmy for killing a bunch of
elders,
people's grandparents, and with the nursing home shit. And like I posted on Twitter earlier a screenshot of a New York Post article that was 16 months old to the day that said a majority of Democrats want Cuomo to replace Biden on the presidential ticket.
Yep. I actually just saw that when you posted that earlier.
Yeah, and I mean, that was true. And people won't, they'll shy away from that and being like, oh well, we always knew Cuomo was a bad seed or whatever. No, man, you wanted him to be president.
And as we talk, this phrase "Cuomo-sexual" is trending on Twitter. So like, we're not going to pretend. Even like similarly, I posted a little quip from Trevor Noah, because Trevor Noah posted something where he said New York flattened the perv, and I'm like, this is the same fucking guy who like 6 months ago was like, I'm a Cuomo-sexual on his abominational version of The Daily Show. Yeah, Jon Stewart should be rolling in his fucking grave for that decision. That's all I'm gonna say on fucking Trevor Noah.
Jon Stewart's dead?
He should. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's in television person jail. Like,
he was Colbert
he has to go on fucking Late Night with Stephen Colbert. I'd rather fucking be dead. So yeah. All right. How about this? Jon Stewart is rolling in his Arby's wraps. How about that?
That's weird.
They when he was on that Colbert episode, man, Jesus Christ, did you see that?
I mean, depends on which one. He's been on there a few times. Are you talking
about?
Oh,
well, I'm talking about the most recent one, wherever
no. The one where he talks about the Wuhan?
The lab leak. Yeah. And I mean, Stephen Colbert just hangs him out to dry, man. Mm-hmm. Basically calls him a conspiracy theorist and shit. And it's like, you wouldn't be in that chair interviewing
without
him
Jon Stewart if
it wasn't for that guy.
Yeah. And it's like, the thing about Jon Stewart was he was genuinely funny. Like, you might not always agree with him, but his premise was never about left or right. It was about ridiculousness and just pointing out ridiculousness. And
genuinely funny and sincere.
Charismatic. Like, you just wanted to watch him no matter what he was talking about. He could take the most boring segment on TV and you'd fucking die just watching it. He was so funny.
He was one of my favorite comedians for the longest time.
And I miss him so much because in a time like this, like, all I beg for is like reprieve sometimes. Like, you see like every major politician is a sex predator of some variation, and every major issue is a controversy, and every identity politic is like in your face all the time. All I want is just to laugh and have somebody cleverly point out ridiculousnesses to me. And then you turn on Trevor Noah and he's like, but this Trump guy, right? Trump guy, right? And I'll give John Oliver credit. Like, his show is very informative and there's a lot of really good info on there, but he's not funny at all.
at the end of the day,
he's just not funny.
he's still a liberal, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, I wish there was something we could tune into that that gave it down the middle, you know.
I'll tell you this much: like, if every liberal was like John Oliver, it would be a lot easier to deal with them. Because I think
Mhm.
John Oliver is very much capable of like self-reflection, and like he doesn't hide information to make liberals look good. He's called out people on the left on his show before, but he's just not Jon Stewart. Like, Jon Stewart's brand of comedy is just we're never gonna see it again, because it was so unique and so good in quality.
It's so much in the delivery for Jon Stewart, and just the animation of him
Yeah,
when he makes jokes is just amazing.
yeah, he had
Well,
the delivery down.
and you know, like with Oliver, uh, he's got all the best joke writers in the world, you know,
Yeah.
working for him. That's publicly known
Mhm.
that he is, you know, purposefully hoarded all these
Yeah.
great joke writers. Uh, and you know, it's funny that you bring up the Jon Stewart delivery and all that. Like the I used to watch John Oliver every week,
Mhm.
and then when COVID came and they took the people out of the studio,
Yeah, it really.
holy shit,
Yeah,
man! It was
you
like watching
realized.
it was like watching a weekly eulogy.
And I guarantee if Jon Stewart were still around and his show was on weekly TV with no audience, it would still be funny. I guarantee it.
Oh, for sure.
Because
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
just a
Like,
funny dude.
who was the oh man, I'm gonna butcher his name. The guy that hosted Patriot Act on Netflix.
Oh, fuck if I know. I don't even have Netflix.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I know who you're
Shoot.
talking about. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was good without an audience. And
Yeah, he's pretty funny. I like him.
yeah, I mean, so it's possible. It's possible to do it. But like when that John Oliver shit started, I watched it for like 2 weeks. I thought
Yeah.
maybe I thought maybe the first week was just, you know, an off week.
Yeah, because it's a new
Uh,
setting and everything.
Yeah, and sometimes I just have shows that don't appeal to me. But like when I watched it the second week, and he'd pause like he normally would for studio laughter, I'd just be like, man, I never realized how much I needed that studio laughter in order to laugh at this show.
Right.
I think that's why they use laugh tracks so much.
I think it does. I mean, have you guys? This is like we're a little off topic, and I'm going to pull it back in a minute. But have you guys ever seen like you can go on YouTube and watch like the sitcoms with no laugh tracks on them?
Yes, like
Holy
really?
fuck! Yeah,
Oh,
like
yeah.
there's like
Friends.
Big Bang Theory, like all these ones that have the laugh tracks. Like there's uploads on YouTube where the laugh track's not there. Oh my god! It is the most uncomfortable 7 or 8 minutes of your life.
Yeah, there's
tell you
there's
what.
a
Because my wife does not like laugh tracks in
Yeah.
shows.
Well, she won't like
well,
this.
yeah, she'll never watch TV again if you show her this.
Yeah, because like there's a running gag that David Schwimmer is really a serial killer, you know,
Mhm.
because like they play Friends clips without a laugh track,
Yeah,
and they're just like, this dude
it's
is a
creepy.
serial killer.
Yeah. If your buddy said that to you, you'd kick him out of your house, kind of deal.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
So to pull it back, and yeah, Yeti, you need to go like just enjoy that a little bit. But yeah, to pull it back, like to Trevor Noah and the way that TV is going to handle this. I know you have the news on in the background. I'm looking on Twitter right now because we just brought up how like Trevor Noah, you know, said he was a Cuomo sexual and talked about approval rating and all this stuff. And I'm looking on here and I'm scrolling through all these people tweeting about Trevor Noah's so funny, Trevor Noah's so funny, Trevor Noah's so funny. His stand-up was fine, but he's just not funny in the role of the Daily Show. And I'm starting to wonder if all these people are sacrificing their like artistic taste for the sake of maintaining party status.
Bro,
Well, I used to
look at
watch-
Saturday Night Live.
Saturday Night Live is trash, and it's been trash since I was a child and probably before then.
Because they have to maintain that you know, anti-Republican, pro-Democrat line of comedy.
Yeah.
You know, like if you can't make fun of both sides,
Yeah, you're not. Everybody's gonna see through you.
it's like The Onion when they tweet something great, and it just, I mean, people just lose their shit on one side or the other.
Yep.
Like The Onion like it's a reputable news source or something. You know,
Yeah, right?
it's fucking satire, man.
Yeah. It's amazing how people will literally drop everything they're doing and dead lock in on some Twitter account that says bad about their side, right?
Hmm.
And I'll tell you this, for all the social media faults that the left has, because they have, they have their share. Like I was waxing poetic a couple days ago about I'm so sick of people thinking that like get blocked culture is any way to handle your fucking business. Like just to proudly like try to get blocked by these famous like Democrats or Republicans like you've achieved anything. That's the literal definition of clout chasing. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people on the hard left on Twitter are in it for the clout as much as they're in it for the issues. Sometimes I think they're in it more for the clout than they are for the issues. Because like there are people out there that are huge like no-nos, like you can't follow them, like like Vosh or Shoe on Head or Jimmy Dore or all these different people. I don't give a fuck if they want to help me get like health care for people and they want to help me deprivatize prison and deprivatize the hospitals and deprivatize marijuana and legalize drugs and shit. I will work with all of these fucking people. Like if they have a bad take, whatever, there's such a thing as like respectful disagreement. But for all of that on the left, I just cannot get over the way that people will jump out of their fucking cars going 65 miles an hour, barrel roll down the highway just to get up in your face and be like, now do Trump. It's not real. It's a Russian conspiracy. It's a Trump conspiracy. It's a Biden conspiracy. All they're doing this and that, and we should know better than for these bots to trick us into believing a story.
Hmm.
I mean, they will literally about anything at all. I mean, even the case being how we got here in the first place. I go in and I say in a Twitter thread, man, it sucks that the president of the United States has been credibly accused of sexual assault and that the governor of New York is resigning due to his credible accusations, multiple, of sexual assault. It sucks that that's our reality. And it sucks that the president before him had 23 plus sexual assault accusations or rape accusations. And it sucks that the guy before him probably had a few too. And it sucks that we're in a culture that just everything is rapey and creepy and touchy and gross. And the response to that is, well, it's worse on the other side.
Hmm.
That's the worst fucking reality about modern politics. And I cannot tell you enough how bothersome it is. And if you're one of these people that's out there, okay, and people are talking about, man, it fucking sucks that Joe Biden raped somebody or that Andrew Cuomo raped somebody. And your response is to go, well, Donald Trump did more. Please buy a mirror and look in it for the first time in your life and think about what you're doing. Please, I cannot beg you enough because you're not like owning the other side the way that you think you are. All that you're doing is making it very apparent that the only time you care about sexual assault is when it's politically beneficial to you or when it's politically inconvenient to your opponents, which means you don't care about victims, you don't care about justice, you don't care about solving any problems. You care about political clout. And congratulations, you're the fucking scum enablers of the earth, and I wish you nothing but the worst.
Yep. On when the Hill posted the Cuomo resigns tweet,
Yeah.
I automatically just scroll down through the replies, just looking for the first person that says something that's just going to trigger me.
I know.
And somebody put, I'd love to know how many of these 11 women are on Trump's payroll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
And
a common one too.
it's just like, man.
You sound awful lot like a fucking Republican right now.
Mm-hmm.
Sound an awful lot like a piece of shit.
You sound exactly like the fucking people 2017 who were like, which Democrat paid off Stormy Daniels? Which Democrat was it that paid off whatever his fucking lawyer's name was?
Who has the P tape?
Yeah. Yeah. You sound like one of those fucking guys. And those are the same people who will turn around and fucking tell you, what do you mean there's no difference between the two parties? That's ridiculous. The Democrats want to help you. The Republicans want to rape everybody. Hey, Cuomo and Biden are both rapists. Well, what about Trump? Huh? What about Trump? It's comedic.
When this when this whole eviction thing started, well, not when it started. It's been going on forever.
Yeah,
but
it has.
When the moratorium lapsed,
Yes.
you could go into any thread about it, and people, I ran into mostly women doing it, but they had a blue wave next to their name, and in their bio they had resist or
Still with
Biden
her.
Harris or I'm still with her. Oh, that's a great one. And
Yeah.
but they would they would be like, it's not Biden's fault that these people are too lazy to go out and work. Maybe if they just got a job, they could pay their rent. And I'm just like, you motherfucking Republicans.
Yeah.
Like you got your blue wave
I know.
and you got your Biden Harris and your I'm still with her in the fucking bio, but you
got your fucking they took our
got your
jobs mullet on.
mentality.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's how close these two parties are aligned now.
Did either
and
one
people
of you
don't even realize it.
Did either one of you ever crawl on purpose or by accident, just crawl into Nancy Pelosi's comments whenever she tweets something?
I do every once in a while.
Man.
It's a lot of dumb in there. So.
It's a dark world. I'll tell you what, after that announcement she made a couple of days ago, I mean, I'm serious. After that announcement she made on television a couple of weeks ago where she said, we just found out about this today or a day ago. There's all these people in this comments. There's all these people in the comments who fucking believed her. Like, she comes out and she's like, we just found out about the eviction moratorium expiring. There's a lot going on right now. I'm like, bitch, you just found out? You're Congress. You have to know.
Conspiracy, dude.
Yeah, I'm like, how do you just find out about anything? You're
because
Congress.
Trump.
Yeah. But on principle, like, you are Congress. It's your job to know shit. Like, you have to know that that's coming, right? Are you telling me that on the Congress floor and on the Senate floor and in the president's daily briefings, they don't bring information to these people? Like, just so you know, in the following week, these are the laws that are going to hit a 30-day window for expiration, or that these are the bills that are going through the Senate floor, or these are the issues that voters are going to be addressing in the coming future. You mean to tell me that there's no information in there about millions and millions and millions and millions of people across the entire country who are going to lose homes in a pandemic, in a global once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, and you found out a day or two before it was going to expire, and you want me to fucking believe you? The ball's on you, Pelosi.
The ability to lie by politicians, like, it's just second nature.
But the ability to lie is one thing, but the fucking gullibility to be like, yes, Queen Nancy, we understand life is tough for you in your pantsuit. We would never interfere with your ability to do jack shit and blame Trump for it.
Thank you for working tirelessly.
Yes, tirelessly.
People always put, thank you for working tirelessly. We know that you are doing your best. And what's
like,
the other
you don't do anything.
You never have time for anything. You're always finding out about shit at the last minute. You're getting denied birthday party invitations. What the fuck are you doing? Because you're not sitting in Congress.
She got a nice fridge. So that at least took 4 weeks probably.
Is that where
she's searching?
Is that where she's going to keep the fucking cold body of Chuck Schumer in a couple of months?
That's where they're going to cryogenically freeze her.
Yeah.
So in 1,000 years,
she can be the jar in the head.
She's still Speaker of the House.
Yeah. Speaker 2038, Nancy fucking Pelosi.
Just her corpse.
Yeah, just her head in a jar.
She, look, I mean, I'm kind of in agreement with her that she uh, didn't know it was coming, because if you've been watching uh, any kind of corporate media over the last 8 months, every day since January 6th has been January 7th.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
day.
The
I
day
mean,
after.
it's just reliving it,
yeah.
reliving it. And the day before they went on their 7-week vacation, what were they doing? Having their little freaking
January 7th
1/6,
commission.
their January 6th commission. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like they got done with that, and it's like, oh, mission accomplished. We did absolutely nothing but piss off the right some more, and it's like, what, any other pressing issues? I guess we can start our vacation 4 days early. And everybody is so scared of her. Nobody was like, hey, in like 4 days that eviction moratorium is going to lapse, and there's 11 million people set to become homeless.
So here we
Now,
have.
everybody is so scared of her to say that.
I know. It's so weird. So here we have a tweet from her, August 3rd, 2021 at 7:04 p.m. regards to this moratorium. She says, "Today is a day of extraordinary relief. Thanks to the leadership of POTUS, the immediate fear of eviction and being put out on the street has been lifted for countless families. Help is here. Democrats have worked tirelessly for this action, which is based on public health needs." Now, let's be very clear. The moratorium is not gone. It's just extended.
Absolutely not.
It's just extended, which means that in, what is it, 5 or 6 more months? I think January, right?
No,
we have to
60 days.
60 fucking days?
Yeah.
I read it.
It's only till October.
I read it was 6 months. You tell 60 fucking days is what you're telling me right now.
The student loan moratorium has been expanded 6 months.
Fuck, man. What the fuck? Like, okay.
Sounds like someone's having a difficult reality here.
Oh, fuck, yeah. At least I definitely confused the two. That's right. 60 fucking days, you might as well put one of my fucking nuts in your mouth. That doesn't help anybody. Does not. Look, nobody out there.
Pretty limited, too.
Here's the thing, Swerve. It's not going to help anybody regardless, okay?
No, nobody.
Here's the deal. Okay, so they pushed off 11 million people or whatever it is becoming homeless another 60 days. But guess what? That's just, they didn't cancel the rent. It's just added to the already ever growing sum.
Nobody.
So now instead of those people owing $10,200, now they're going to owe $11,000.
Nobody in that time.
I see both sides of this, because, like, I've got some family that are
landlords.
that are landlords, but they also have other jobs, and they just do this as like a side hustle. But they depend on, like, the rent money to pay the property taxes or whatever. And it's just something they're going to fall back on whenever they retire.
But there's protections for that too. Like, depending on the type of agreement that you have, if you're a landowner, there's certain federal protections that as a landlord you can get that you cannot get as a renter.
Oh, yes. And but like, in the same regard, like, I see how they're like, why? I mean, the big time corporations, that the BlackRocks and shit, I'm not worried about any of those people, and I'm really not worried about any landlords. But it is, something. Instead of kicking the can down the road, you have to do something substantial.
Here's the reality of it. It's exactly like you said. Nobody is going to. That 60 days is going to allow absolutely nobody to accrue the wealth required to stem their eviction. If they're already backlogged $2,400, another 2 months of $700 or $800 or $1,500 rent checks is not going to make that any fuck easier. They could solve this problem on both fronts with a COVID-based landlord stimulus bill that's sole job was to pay off or forgive the debts of renters during the time of the global pandemic. You could do that through UBI. You could do that through a specific sign-on program. You could do it however the fuck you wanted. But the sole purpose of the program would be that rent would no longer temporarily during the pandemic be the responsibility of the rentee and would instead default to the Internal Revenue Service, whose job would be to create a fund through taxes or through government assistance or whatever fuck means you want. They would pay the rent for those people during that time. And in doing so, you would keep the landlords afloat while maintaining the property value and also not forcing people into a pickle they will never be able to pull themselves out of, especially when most of these people can't work or couldn't work for significant periods of time. Most people are still scared to work. A good number of our country did not get their vaccine or is choosing not to, and the vaccines are not as effective as they said they were, meaning that there's some skepticism regarding whether or not they even work properly. So the fact of the matter is, if you had just done that from the get-go, and fucking don't even come into our comment section and tell us, well, you can't afford that. You can't afford that. We're the richest country on earth, or so they keep fucking telling us. Every single time we have to make a weapons deal or go to war, we always have money. We always have money for it. Every time the corporations in this country need a bailout, we always have money for it. It comes from somewhere every single time. We need money for the people who run this country. We have the money. It's always when the people who are the country need something that we can't afford it. For you, for me, for your neighbor, for their neighbor, for everybody down the block, everybody in the next town over. That's when we never have the money.
Well, so if they help out citizens, then citizens won't fight each other.
More people having more money is the root base for a healthy, functioning economy in the modern world. If I have more money, I will spend more money. If I spend more money, you make more money. If you make more money, you give more money to the people who help you make money. And if you give more money to the people who help you make money, they have more money, and the cycle repeats itself. It's real fuck easy to follow. And if you really wanted... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's the definition of how capitalism is supposed to work, how it's designed to work. And it's also the definition of how it always ends up failing.
Yeah.
Because the rich keep getting richer, they suffocate everybody else, they increase the rent, they increase the food costs, they increase everything except the wages.
Right. I mean,
that's it.
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, no, I have yet to hear a good, well-presented, non-bullshit laced argument as to why the government could not afford to pay people to stay home during this whole thing. If you, in February 2020, or even March, or even April in 2020, had issued a $2,500 monthly guaranteed UBI for 2 months. Stay home 2 months. It takes 2 weeks to kill the virus off. If you make it 2 months, you increase the likelihood that those rogue fuckers who won't listen and will go out anyway will kill it off too. You pay people, essentially, every person you pay $5,000. Total time, 2 months to stay home. This shit is gone. Or at the very least... It's like one of these fucking diseases that pops up like once in a blue moon, right? It's fucking dead.
Did you know that with all the relief money that Congress has allocated thus far, that every man, woman, and child, this is 328 million people into the sum that has been allocated, comes out to $27,000 per person.
Right.
So a family of 3, that's over $75,000 that would have just been given to them. I mean, do you think that might have worked a little bit better than giving all these fucking corporations PPP loans that they don't even need?
Yep.
And I mean, I don't. Do you have Section 8 housing in your state?
I sure do. I actually have it down the street from me, about 5 minutes away.
So we have Section 8 housing in Illinois. You know, I don't think every state has it. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Probably not.
But That's all they had to do, Swerve, at the very beginning of this thing. That's all they had to do instead of telling landlords, go suck a dick and you're not going to get your money. These people can stay in their houses for free for this amount of time. And then when that time comes up, oh, well, we're going to push it off a little bit further. Oh, we're going to push it off a little bit further. At the very beginning of this thing, they could have made every rental property Section 8 approved, and the landlords would have gotten paid, and the renters would have had a house over their head. And I mean, at the very least, they could have done that. You know, if they don't want to give everybody a UBI because that's some kind of socialist craziness or whatever they're scared of, the at the very least, they could have had a roof over their head for the entirety of this pandemic. And then after it was all said and done, and everybody could go back to their lives, they don't have $12,000 in
Yep.
back rent due. These people, I mean, Pelosi in that tweet celebrating, but not just Pelosi, AOC, Cori Bush, all these people celebrating that 60-day extension. Like that's just, I mean, they keep putting scotch tape on an open wound, is what I keep saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they pour
Yeah,
sugar
most of
on
it, I think, is just show, right?
Well,
So,
I mean,
a
it's
lot of
just
it
it's
performance.
just kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
and
they
eventually you're
could-
going to
they
run out of
could
fucking
have-
road.
They could have, I mean, they could have, like I said with the Section 8, man, they could have alleviated this problem from the very beginning. If not, how about whenever the first eviction moratorium came up, and instead of extending it, they could be like, okay, wait a minute, what is the most reasonable way to do this? Look at me, man. I got a high school diploma. You know, I dropped out of community college. I'm not some kind of fucking smart dude, but somehow I know that this Section 8 housing thing is possible. It could have been done. You're telling me that the smartest people in the world, supposedly the most powerful, couldn't put their heads together and come up with this same solution?
You know, if I was arguing in good faith, if I believed that they just didn't figure it out and it was due to incompetence, I think I could at least partially forgive some of them. But I'm not stupid enough to think that it's incompetence, and I've never been stupid enough to think that it's incompetence. The truth is, it's maliciousness. They definitely figured it out, and they know that it's not profitable for their select group of people. It always comes back to
Exactly.
this. It always comes back to this. The United States, under its current capitalist system, will find a way to privatize and monetize every fuck thing that happens. If you don't believe me, throughout this pandemic, Bezos and Musk and these other billionaires made more wealth than they've made in the last 5 or 6 years combined during the pandemic, something to that effect.
Yeah.
Pfizer and Moderna made fucking bank because they privatized the patent to the vaccines. Instead of publicizing it and making them publicly available, they privatized it. Their stocks went through the roof, and their shareholders fucking had an orgy of sick people money. The United States didn't want to give out the fucking vaccine to the rest of the world unless the rest of the world paid for it. I mean, we're talking about the worst virus, the worst pandemic that has crossed our country and our shores and our world in our lifetimes and before. We're talking about one of the worst things that's happened to this country since the Great Depression, all right? And we fucking monetized it. We turned it into a for-profit industry. The COVID-19 industry is alive and well and roaring in the United States. They don't want it to go away because it is now their product. COVID-19 and its accessories are their product now. They want you buying their vaccines. They want you getting their chemicals. They want you buying your masks. They want you buying your shit. And this isn't a conspiracy theorist thing. I'm not out here promoting that it was created or whatever, or that it was, introduced as a way to herd population. I'm not interested in those conspiracy theories for this point. I'm talking about the traceable money, the shit we know. They want it around because it's profitable. That's why people like Joe Biden are out here telling people that we beat COVID while we're getting a huge spike in cases and 2 new variants are popping up. And they're fucking bad. They're not just like This one comes with acne. Like, this one will kill you too. And it'll kill you dead. And it'll kill you fast. It's why we're not putting fucking children in masks in school. We're just going to let them fucking go back in, what, 2 or 3 weeks? 2 or 3 weeks. It's not the distant future anymore. It's fucking August now. We're going to let them go back and just fucking rub all over each other and slam each other around in gym class and sit 3 feet away from each other in regular class. We're just going to let it go because fuck it. We're getting back to normal. This is as much a product in the United States as anything else. And because it's a product, it's all about the money. It's the reason they don't care if you get evicted, because you getting evicted means you're more likely to get sick, which means you're more likely to go to the hospital. You getting evicted means you're more likely to die, which means fuck the poor are gone, more money for me. The bottom line is, this eviction moratorium is not incompetence. It is maliciousness. Because your suffering is profitable to the right people. And as long as it stays that way, buckle in, baby, because COVID-19 is the new normal. It is the new hot industry, and it's fucking selling, man. Flying off the shelves. That's the United States we live in. That's the fucking difficult reality.
Can I also bring up that that the just like with the 2008 housing crisis, they're allowing it to happen. So the banks and these investment firms can come in and buy your house from the bank that you defaulted to for pennies on the dollar, and then turn around and make it a rental property that they're renting out for $400 a month more than what your payment was. That I mean, so yes, it is. It's all big business. This virus, like
They perfected the art of.
Go ahead, yeah.
I was gonna say they perfected the art of squeezing every penny out of people at all times. Like everything they do is designed to get that last quarter of a cent out of you.
But if you bitch about it, on Twitter, like in the left circles we're in, if you bitch about it, then you're a conspiracy theorist. Then you're anti-science. I mean, they've got everybody trained. Yeah, I mean, I get called an anti-vaxxer every day, and I have to show them pictures of my vaccine card, and then they say that
you should never do that. By the way, you should never tweet that out, because people will fucking steal your shit and make fakes of it. So you should never tweet out your vaccine card or post it on Facebook.
Well, I don't put the flip side of it. I don't put my name or anything.
Good.
I just show where I got my first dose and my second dose. It's on the back side. I don't know if everybody's is the same, but it doesn't have my name or anything. It's just got the. Yeah.
Did you guys get actual like cards?
Yeah, physical.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we just got like a printout piece of paper.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's basically a printout note card.
Cardboard.
Yeah, it's just cardboard. It's not like it's like a credit card or something that you.
No, I get that.
In stores.
Not yet.
We literally just got like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper.
Couldn't you see that though coming in the future? Like all the doors, the new smart locks on all the store doors will be you have to swipe your vaccine card to get in, and you go in single file.
Brother, it's already started.
Yeah.
Those are called food lines.
Yeah. Yeah,
not
really.
Stores.
Well, I mean, just like the Amazon stores.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those. Yeah, where you swipe your card and then you just leave, and it charges you whatever you left.
Nobody works there.
Yeah. Yeah.
They got a little robot that goes around and waxes the floor at night.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody works there.
Yeah.
You go in, you put the shit in your basket. The basket, you put in a box of cereal. There's a little thing on your cart that adds an extra $4 to whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all you've already swiped your information to get in the store itself. So every time you put something in your cart, it just keeps adding to it, and then you just walk right out.
Yep.
Long before Bezos just owns America. Just outright buys it.
Yeti, it's already happened.
Yeah,
pretty much.
It's not just him. There's like 5 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
it's like the Bohemian Grove kind of idea stuff there.
Yeah.
And they're gonna own all the land, like.
And yeah.
I mean, Bill Gates has bought what is it, 250,000 acres of farmland in the last like 2 years.
For fuck's
Uh,
sakes.
and it's, I mean, like, I'm not asking for these rich people to just sign a check to make temporary public housing for the homeless. But if our politicians could just uh, tax them and then allocate that money to certain social needs, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, how crazy is this place going to look when they finally do lift that
I'd like to know
moratorium?
how many politicians have offshore bank accounts.
Oh, real quick.
Yes.
Uh, they the Senate just passed that infrastructure
Infrastructure.
deal.
Yeah, I actually saw that before we went live. I was gonna hold off on talking about it till it either passed or didn't, and then we could get into the grit and the grime of what was in
Yeah,
there.
let's not hit on that until after we see what happens with
Yes.
that's what I was going to tell you. Let's hold off on talking about that until the 3.5 trillion one. If
Yeah.
let's see what it does, because apparently AOC has said that the squad will not approve this infrastructure deal without the
Mhm.
other one.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, if they do, man, I will give glowing reviews to them for that. I'm not one of these guys that's gonna burn them every time they speak.
Yeah.
If uh, I I just I mean, they're just disappointments all around. So that's why I'm always so hard on the squad. But if they do that, if they vote as a block and say, look, we ain't doing it without the big one, you know, more power to them. But I am not holding my breath on that.
So with that being said, we have one final topic on hand for today's episode, and that is, of course, the infamous announcement of Apple's new CSAM scanning technology that they claim is supposedly designed around trying to identify child sexual, artistic, whatever the fuck you want to call it, images, basically child porn, on people's iClouds and iPhones. And a lot of us out there are skeptical, not only that that's what it's for, but that that's all that it'll be used for, and that Apple is the only ones with their hands in the cookie jar. And I don't mean Samsung and Android and all that. I mean the government, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, Interpol, all of these communities that police the world and the United States. That's what I'm interested in. Sorry, that's what I am concerned about. Is I'm not naive enough to think we don't live in a world where Edward Snowden exists and that Julian Assange exists. Like, we know already, the government already does all kinds of horrible, gross, shady shit when it comes to technology and spying. We already know it. Why would this be any different? Why would a roving backdoor into Apple software be any different? Why would your ability to detect the hashes of images, and let's be clear for our listeners at home, that's how they plan on doing this. It's not like Apple is going to collect the world's largest child porn database ever created and assembled and just compare images like you're playing like Clue or Guess Who or something. This is a hash, which is basically an image identity, to put it long short. A hash is an image identity that the computer uses to identify an image that you're looking at. We use the literal picture. It has its own way of identifying it, and that's called a hash. And what this database will do is it will collect the hashes of known images that are basically child porn, and will compare those hashes to images in the cloud and on your phone. And if it identifies a common hash, it triggers the authorities. And I think it goes to human review. And then if the human review confirms it, then it goes to the authorities. Now, setting aside that being the Apple child porn reviewer has got to be the worst job in existence next to the FBI child porn reviewer. Setting that aside.
Where's the fucking horror stories?
Yeah. Setting that aside, there is so much more. This is a dam. Okay. This concept of introducing this technology, This is a dam. This is a levee. And people don't realize how much water is behind this dam. What I mean when I say that is hash image spoofing is not crazy difficult to do if you are tech literate. So, somebody can change the hash of an image to a different hash. So, theoretically, somebody could change the hash image of a picture of a dog driving a car to match the hash of an image of some depiction of child pornography. And once that image has the new hash, if that goes into the cloud and it triggers, you're going to get swatted for having a picture of a dog on your phone. Now, what's worse is somebody who's smart enough, who's out there, who's a child pornographer and also a techie, is going to go, all right, guys, we're going to put a bunch of new hashes out on these images. We're going to rehash all these images. So when we redistribute them, they won't flag in the system. So this will be on your phone. But perhaps, in my opinion, what could be the worst outcome of this is I've talked for a while about the NSA and the FBI and the CIA using this technology to assemble dossiers on people who are politically inconvenient. So they'll use this technology to scan for more than just CP. They'll use it to scan for radicalization images or memes of Joe Biden, for example, or, people who save pictures of the Communist Manifesto or who screenshot socialist literature or things of that nature.
Yeah.
And they'll assemble these, and then they'll find shit that's embarrassing about you. Like maybe you like to watch like World of Warcraft porn, or maybe you're a furry, or, maybe you have a lot of debt to somebody that you don't want to be public, or that paying to erase would be convenient. My point is, they will use this technology to get blackmail on you. Mm-hmm. And then when the time comes that it's useful, they will blackmail you. This is not new. This is not a new concept. The FBI has notoriously blackmailed people who are politically inconvenient. Depending on who you talk to, the FBI either allowed, participated in, or were responsible for the assassination of Martin Luther King and the assassination of JFK. We know.
Well, I almost wonder if they're blackmailing Britain to keep Assange.
Maybe. But to keep things worse, here's the one. This is probably the most problematic possibility. If that software can search and remove images from your cloud, who's to say it cannot put images there?
Yeah.
Who's to say that that software will not be used to identify certain people who are politically inconvenient, fill their cloud up with child pornography, or even just the hashes that match the database, trigger itself, and then alert the authorities to have you arrested? Because we were talking last week about how do you know what you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see people get arrested. Let's just pick a random fucking guy, like random Joe Schmo gets arrested for child pornography. Do you know they had it, or did the cops tell you they had it? You know what I mean? Did you see it with your own eyes, or did the police tell you they found it on a hard drive, right?
Yeah. Well, and look how many times police just do that in general.
Yeah, with drugs and with weapons, and
they
plant evidence all the time.
Like Khalif Browder.
Yeah, planting evidence is not a new activity for police. So I could very much see this being the new planting evidence. People like, major political figures, and I'm not going to just randomly throw out fucking names, but think about in your personal life, political, names that you either aspire to or respect, or even ones you condone and that you don't like Tucker Carlson or something. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, you're going to see a whole bunch of people just come up with child porn accusations or child porn charges, and it's going to be triggered by this new software, this CSAM scanning software. And you're going to say to yourself, I think that guy was a fucking asshole, or, maybe, like, let's just say Tucker Carlson. I said I wasn't going to say names, but his name came out of my mouth. So let's just say it was Tucker Carlson or Rachel Maddow, so I'm not being biased, right? You could say to yourself, those people are assholes. I disagree with them completely politically. Maybe they were racist or segregationist, or maybe they were elitist and they look down on certain groups of people, but they never struck me as a pedophile. That's kind of odd, or On the flip side, it could be, oh, wow, that person had a lot of great arguments. They were a true humanitarian. I marched with them. I donated with them. I worked with them personally. They were like, they're not creepy at all. You mean to tell me they're a pedophile now? I just don't. I see so many red flags with this sort of software. Because we already know, and we already know this is possible. The Patriot Act has existed since we were children, and spying was happening way before then. Internal
even
government spying.
I was talking to Swerve, or not, sorry. Yeah, I was talking to
Yeah,
Spin.
you were talking to me, all right.
Yeah. I was talking to Spin about the Pegasus stuff.
Yes.
Because that was, for like 3 years, that was held by an American company. Yeah, out of San Francisco. They sold it back to Israel in 2019.
Right.
So I have to imagine there was probably some work they did between those years that is going to be attached to the Pegasus leak.
Well, look, this is topical to me for two big reasons. Obviously, other than the fact that it's happening in real time. This is important to me primarily because it is a great contextual, contemporary example of how our Constitution has not caught up to our technology.
Yeah.
The Fourth Amendment of the United States specifically is designed to prevent the government and its agencies from committing illegal searches and seizures without probable cause, right? So a cop can't just come into your house and look around because they're a cop. They have to have a warrant. They have to have some kind of search. Although even that's not totally true these days with all these like SWAT raids and no-knock warrants and things like that.
Yeah.
It's not even totally true anymore. But the principle is that, you know, like the police can't just come into your shit and look through it because they have to have a good reason. They have to have been tipped off, or they have to have had prior, you know, indication or evidence or whatever have you. And the Fourth Amendment was written in a time where there was no such thing as fiber optic networks, webcams, telephones, long distance communication via digital means.
I don't think they even had a string in a can.
They could not have fucking foreseen what we were going to have in 200 years. We right now have no clue what 200 years from now is going to look like. We have no idea. It's going to be way different than we fucking think. Whatever we think is actually going to be the case will be radically different from what is actually the case. Yeah. And that amendment has not changed or really been meaningfully modified to reflect the fact that all of this information, this digital era, is like right there. The FBI, the NSA, the CIA can have a profile on you in 5 minutes, and all of that information can be obtained, some of it legally by just going through somebody's Facebook, but some of it not legally, like going through your private computer or going through your private cell phone or going through your, and you know, you could come at me with all the legalities of like, oh, what's behind a cell phone contract and how much of your information is actually public and what's in the terms and agreements that you don't read and all that shit. But all that shit should be legislated by the Fourth Amendment anyway. There shouldn't be able to be clauses in these things that allow for backdoor intervention and for third-party intervention and things like that. Those should be legislated out.
Yeah, your private property should be your private property, right?
And everybody, and see, this is the brilliance of doing it behind this particular topic, because nobody's going to come out and be the pro-child porn guy. Like, exactly. Nobody's going to come out and be the guy who's like, no, I think we should protect pedophiles. Yeah. Because that's fucking ridiculous. Like,
and
they are arguing for pedophiles.
Yeah.
When you're on Twitter, and I've seen you bring this up.
Yeah.
That's what people are immediately hitting you back with.
Yeah.
They're like, well, what are if it stops
pedophiles,
child trafficking, then and are you against that? And it's just like, shut up.
And that's the definition of somebody who can't see the forest through the trees, because of course nobody out here is the pro pedophile guy,
and they just believe everything they hear.
It's the same way they use Nazis.
It's scanning for child pornography right now. Right now, it's the CP police. But once you have the ability to scan for one thing, you have the ability to scan for all things. You have the ability to scan for people saving political dissension. Or here's a very good one. You have the ability to scan for people videotaping police interactions, videotaping crime taking place, videotaping government abuse taking place, videotaping Mitt Romney in a lobby full of people telling his constituents that 47% of the country are lazy, entitled assholes. You have the ability
He was
to,
talking about himself, right?
yeah. You have the ability to scan for all of that too, because all of that has hashes. And if you can find common hashes in a database, for example, let's throw it back. Let's say this technology existed last year. Okay. You have the ability to scan for people who save the video of George Floyd's arrest. You have the ability to save the video, or you have the ability to scan for people who saved images of George Floyd, or who saved images of Black Lives Matter, or who saved images of whatever. Then you can collect all of that data too. And guess what? You have this nice little dossier on, Allison Jones, who lives in Millbury, Wisconsin, right? Who is a political dissenter and who has genuine political aspirations, who wants to run for Congress or mayor or whatever. You can quietly one day knock on her door or send her an email and say, hey, Allison, so you remember all this stuff about George Floyd that you saved? Well, wouldn't it be really, really embarrassing if this video of you having sex with a stuffed animal with a dildo on it leaked out to the public? We found that in your phone too, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to ask kindly that you don't run, or that if you continue to run, that you sort of moderate yourself, that you sort of take away these extremist positions. We don't need to defund the police. We need to empower the police to do their job correctly and take away the stigma. Depending on how bad that negative information they have on you is, yeah, that could be fucking really hard to turn down. Let's say it was, let's say instead of the dildo video, she had $500,000 in student loans, credit cards, mortgages, car payments, etc., medical bills, etc. Hey, Allison, we're fine with you running, but you're going to run in a more moderate position. In exchange, your debt is gone. Gone. Gonzo. And your family's debt, it's gone too. You will get a fresh start, whether you win or lose, but you will run on moderate positions, or you're going to tank the election and we'll pay you. You're not going to campaign in these critical spots. You're not going to campaign over here. And people are like, wow, that's wackadoo conspiracy shit. No, it's not. You know how I know it's not? Because it happened before. It has already happened. There are documented testimonial cases, some of which are in the court public record, where people who were going to run for a particular office were confronted with private information and were told to stop campaigning or change their position on certain issues. It's already happened. And I could sit here and list off the ones that I know, but I would be doing a disservice to people because then they don't have the ability or the foresight to go look it up for themselves.
Yeah.
And I would rather them do that.
Tucker Carlson's emails?
That is up for debate. Yeah, I mean, that's up for debate. I question anything that comes out of anybody on television's mouth in regards to their, the government. But that's definitely been a topic that they've talked about. But I mean, really, just even if you've heard everything I've said up to this point and you're like, bro, this dude's just making excuses for pedos, like whatever. Just really think about this next sentence that I'm going to say, really, truly, deeply in your soul. I want you to think of everything you've ever experienced: Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, fiscal, social politics, government shutdowns, militaries, wars, raids. Think of everything you've ever known politically. And answer this question honestly with a yes or no. You mean to tell me the government has never lied to you once? One time about anything, from where your tax dollars go to who's running the country. Like, they've never lied to you one time about
Have
anything?
they ever told us the truth?
That's the more interesting question. That's kind of the question that it begs is really the truth there. And so if you know that, if you know the country's lied to you, if you know the Patriot Act was installed in 2002 as a response to fear from 9/11 that allowed government intervention in all of your private lives, including your phone calls to emails, up to this day, mind you, still active. The Patriot Act, although it has gone through different names and changes in legislation, it's still fucking there. And mind you, it was happening before it was legal. Going all the way back to that time, knowing the fact that the CIA has accessed Google Mail multiple times, that the FBI has broken into Google Mail multiple times, going back to 2016 when the FBI demanded that Apple create a backdoor into their own cell phone technology so they could access the phone of a mass shooter to see if he had terrorist-related information on that phone. How far Apple has fallen from the tree, might I say, in regards to that.
He apparently, according to Amnesty International, iPhones like the iMessage is one of the worst for protection.
Yeah, it's really not encrypted very well. And a lot of that message data is backed up onto the cloud, which if you know how to take it apart, you can read the text in it and reassemble it. But I digress. You go back to all these times and you look at Edward Snowden and Julian Assange and what they've revealed, and even Chelsea Manning. You go back to all these times where the government has said, "No, man, we're not looking at your shit," when they were very much looking at your shit. You really want to tell me that this one time with Apple, that is intervening in the most distributed, high piece of technology in the entire world, they have their hands literally in your pocket at all times, and you want to tell me that this occasion is the one time that we've got to trust them to do the right thing? How fucking naive do you think?
It's like going back to the abuse of X every time. Now, this time they're not going to hit me.
This time it's going to be different. Yeah. It's going to be different. They've learned their lesson this time.
This time they're going to kick you.
We're watching now. We're alert. Meanwhile, 43% of the population doesn't even know who Edward Snowden was.
Really? That much?
It's pretty fucking high. 43 might be an exaggeration, but I know it was in the last time I saw the poll. I know it was in the 40s. That when they polled like 100,000 people, and 43% of them either could not or misidentified Edward Snowden. A lot of people thought he was Julian Assange, and a lot of people thought he was what did they thought he was. One person thought he was Joe Montana, the quarterback for the Broncos. And a lot of people thought
Montana played for the 49ers.
And I think it was like
John Elway.
Well, okay, yeah, whatever. I got my team wrong. And then one person thought he was the CEO of Blizzard, who makes World of Warcraft and Overwatch and all that, which I'm sure Edward Snowden right about now is glad he is not the CEO of Blizzard. Overwhelming majority of people don't know who Edward Snowden is. They don't know what he did. They don't remember his revelation. And I think it was like 20% of the people who did know what Edward Snowden did thought that what he did was criminal and he should be persecuted for doing it. So in that reality, less than 60% of the population, in theory, not only knows who Snowden is, but agrees with him. So like we're in a super minority in terms of like people who actually understand this technology and what it's capable of and how it's misused frequently. So no, I have no faith in our society's ability to see the forest in the trees.
People are going to look back at America in like 200 years and just be amazed at how well they dealt propaganda out.
Right. And I mean, it's going to be a case study for future societies after the collapse of the United States, probably in the next 40 to 50 years. I can't begin.
I think next week.
That would be nice, honestly. As long as I can come hang out with you.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, I mean, look. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I was going to wait until you were done to comment on the matter.
Yeah.
But like you brought up the point about trusting them at their word.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just wanted, like, I've got some quotes here from yesterday. And the best part, I think, about me researching this was that it didn't name the person that was given the quotes. It said Apple. Apple
Right.
said.
Right. That's a great way to dodge.
They didn't. No Tim Cook. No. No guy that handles the public relations.
Yeah. Just Apple.
Apple. And it says here, Apple said on Monday that its system doesn't scan private photo libraries that haven't been uploaded to iCloud and
Bullshit.
is far more private than similar software used by Google and Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
Let us be clear, Apple says.
The trigger
This,
the trigger phrase.
this technology is limited to detecting CSAM stored in iCloud, and we will not comply to any government's request to expand it.
I
The
don't believe you.
CSAM capability is built solely to detect known CSAM images stored in iCloud photos that have been identified by experts from child safety groups.
Who are the experts?
Like, who are the experts? Who are the groups?
Yeah.
How
was
does
Joe
Apple?
Biden.
How is Apple giving quotes as a corporation?
And furthermore, okay, if Apple is publicly announcing that they're going to be searching for child pornography, how is the government not involved? It's
Yeah.
necessarily involved because what's the next step is prosecution, which is a federal matter. The FBI handles child pornography, which is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So you're either telling me that Apple's going to identify it and then send you a letter in the mail that says, "Hey, knock that off, you silly boy," or they're going to tell the fucking police. So the government's going to say, "Hey, show me what you got." What is Apple going to do? Say, "Well, no." Or they're going to fucking turn it over to the government. Like, you can't honestly expect people to be that dumb. And just a quick warning for everybody that's out there. If somebody in a public setting says, "Let me be clear," the thing they're going to say right after that is a lie. It's going to be a lie. Because if you're like, I understand sometimes you have to clarify. You come on and you're like, "Hey guys, last week I said this and it came out wrong and what I meant to say was this." You can usually detect when that's genuine, right? If somebody puts out something suspect and then everybody's like, "Hey, what about this and this and this and that and this and that," and they come back and say, "Well, let me be clear," they're lying to your face. The next sentence they say, it's going to be a lie.
And I'd also like to say that to anybody listening to this and being like, man, they're really downplaying the child porn aspect of this. Like, I mean, that is a serious problem. Okay.
Yes.
No doubt. But for anybody listening to this that thinks that we are being too haphazard in our approach, I just want to say this. As of 2018, there were an estimated 35,000 children working in Congo's cobalt mines. Now, 50% of all cobalt is for lithium battery use. Okay. And the demand for the mineral has more quadrupled since 2018. Those kids that, in 2018, I couldn't find a 2021 or a 2020 estimate of how many
Right.
children are working in these mines. The closest I could find to our date today was 2018, and it was estimated 35,000 children. Those kids are working 12-hour shifts at a minimum for $1 to $2 a day. Okay, but we're supposed to believe that Apple, Google, Microsoft suddenly care about child exploitation?
Yeah.
Now, a Business Insider article from this December, so what, 8 months ago, Apple discovered that Scion Electronics, one of its Chinese-based suppliers, relied on child labor, but still took 3 years to cut ties with them. Now, this was back in 2013 when they found out. It took them till 2016 to cut ties with them, and we just heard about it in December of 2020. Over the years, Apple has faced intense criticism amid reports that it relies on forced Uyghur labor, and protests over poor working conditions and wage theft by workers that make their products. This violates Apple's own ethics policies. 10 former members of Apple supplier responsibility team said that Scion isn't an isolated incident. Apple has refused or was slow to stop doing business with suppliers that had repeatedly violated labor laws or workplace safety when it would have cut into their profits. They also refused to cut ties with BL Crystal, one of its glass screen suppliers, for similar complaints. Their lens technology relies on forced labor of thousands of Uyghurs that the Chinese government has displaced from their homes in Xinjiang. They are a $1 trillion company, and the federal government lets them slide on all of this for a mere $6 to $7 million in lobbying money each year. Now, I said million. The word billion gets thrown around like it's 50 cents nowadays. $6 to $7 million for this $1 trillion company to continue its labor practices. And in comparison, Amazon and Facebook and Google, they spend between 16 and 21 million a year in bribe money, because that's what it is. The lobbyist cash, that's all it is bribe money. So how much terrible shit does the US government allow those monsters to get away with? And,
Go ahead.
it's just, and yeah, I just got a little bit more here because I was fascinated by the whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, in not the last 3 months, okay, between April and June, 3 months time, Apple, Microsoft, and Google have reported a combined $50 billion in profits. In 3 months, $50 billion. Apple is responsible for 21.7 billion of that. So if the US government tells Tim Cook to use this CSAM technology to spy on a rival country, they will comply, because they have proven time and time again that they are solely driven by profits over people, no matter how young and vulnerable these people happen to be. So don't fucking tell me that all of a sudden Apple cares about child exploitation when they use children to make a profit off of the products they sell. That's it.
And I mean, that's absolutely fantastic work by you to point all that out, because I wasn't even like on that wavelength whatsoever. And that you're absolutely right. It's totally disingenuous, and it's people denying the part where they participate in the exploitation to talk about the part that makes them angry that they don't participate in. But even further on that, even if we were just talking about the CP problem, if your problem with what we're talking about is you're really dismissing the CP issue, no, we're not. That's a bad faith retaliation to what we're talking about, because as we've said 3 or 4 times, nobody out here is the pro-pedophile guy. Nobody out here is defending that. What we're talking about is that we don't believe Apple when they say that this will only be used for this purpose. And we see all of the potential ways that it can be manipulated and twisted and broken and distorted to do whatever the fuck somebody who pays Apple enough or somebody who has access to the technology wants to do with it. That's what we're talking about. We believe that the CP problem is the cover. That's the cover. And will they use it for that? Yeah, they will. Will they catch people with it? Probably. But in the same way that Obamacare, it got people healthy. Oh yeah, it paid for some bills. It was designed to make people wealthier and to do a different task than it was presented as. Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the ways this could be misused. And that's all we're talking about, because nobody out here is pro-pedo. Yeah. It's a straw man to build that argument up, to say that we're pro-pedo or that we don't care about children, and then attack that argument. It's a straw man. Don't do that. Be fucking smarter than your first brain cell lets you. Think outside the box.
Yeah. It's like the Jen Psaki thing, and you're not saying we have kids in cages. Bad cages.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, in COVID conditions.
Yeah, that's what it was. Thanks.
Yeah. And
yes, we are.
You know,
Yeah.
like with Obama when he was caught, you know, just with his pants down on the NSA thing by Snowden.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he denied it at first, and
Yeah.
then whoever his advisors were or whatever was like, "Look, man, you can't deny it. You got to go out there and face reality."
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys remember this, but he went out there and he gave this long speech, pretty much shaming anybody that was opposed to what he was doing and his mass surveillance deal. And he says, sometimes you got to sacrifice some privacy in order to be safe. We're keeping you safe. Now, I just want to throw out there that, okay, that if that's the case, sure, man, I don't really have that much to hide. You know, if that's if they're going to catch terrorists or somebody that's going to blow up the country, whatever, uh, then you know maybe it's for the greater good. But I mean, this is a fact that if you look at the incarcerated population in the United States, 0.0% of the incarcerated people are in because of national security threat.
Right.
I mean, so it's like such a minuscule number. It's like 240 people out of all the prisoners we have in the United States that it registers at 0.0. So we sacrificed all our privacy for that.
For no protection. And look, even in that case, if you would give up freedom for security, you deserve neither. If you would give up a little bit, just a little bit, just a little sprinkle off the top here, then you'll give just a little sprinkle off the top there, just a little sprinkle off the top there, and there, and there, and there, till eventually you've traded all your freedom for security, and you feel safe, but from what exactly? Because you can't get on the phone and read about your threats. You can't turn on the TV to any other channel but the one, you know, with the government on it and learn about your threats. You can't really go too far away from your house. You can't really, you know, do much of anything. If you'll give them some now, you'll give them some later until eventually they have it all. And they'll keep manufacturing crises and problems and threats and concerns to chip away at that freedom. They'll make up new terrorist threats and new wars and new issues and new diseases and new whatever the fuck. So you just give up a little more, little more, little more, little more, little more, little more, till it's gone.
And that's what we're dealing with today. The COVID is the new terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like with the vaccine passport discussion, I get in so much shit on Twitter, man, because of my COVID talk. You know, and I try to shy away from it because I lose so many followers every time I get heated. But I'm fully vaxxed. You are fully vaxxed. Yeti is fully vaxxed.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that I think that we all need to have some kind of card that allows us to be able to participate in society
Mm-hmm.
every time that there's some new variant or whatever. Like, oh, well,
Yeah.
it says
You got to get
like
your
a punch
card
card, like
updated.
a subway punch card.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, you don't you got your Delta variant and you got your Lambda variant, but you don't have your Phi Delta Chi
Yeah.
variant. So sorry, we can't let you come here today.
Pretty
Yeah,
soon
I-
your
You know,
medical records will look like Greek
not
week.
it's not about you know like not wanting to get this one vaccine, like trying to be anti-science and all. And that's what these people
Yeah.
on Twitter can't understand, man. That like somebody argued with me yesterday, like I have a driver's license and I have a social security card and I have to have a passport to travel across countries. So why should it stop at vaccines? And it's like, because you just said it, vaccines. not just this one. And it's not a one-off thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, this vaccine or this virus is the new terror. That's your new terror that you have to be scared of. Since Obama's surveillance program has garnered 0.0% prison population for national security, now all of a sudden, we're not in fear of domestic terrorism as much anymore.
Right.
And now people, they have turned so many people against one another just for having a vaccine, but not and drawing a line at it, just being like,
Yeah.
look, like you said when we opened, Swerve, the efficacy is not as good as what they let on. I mean,
Yeah.
these breakthrough cases are just rising and rising. But we all got our vaccines, but they still haven't been FDA approved. And now you're telling me that I'm going to have to take another booster shot, and another one before the first one gets FDA approval, and God forbid some type of adverse reaction happens 6 months, a year down the road because it hasn't been tested properly, and the government's already given blanket immunity to the manufacturers. What kind of bullshit is that?
Right.
And you try
Yeah,
and
like
bring
there's
that
no
up.
recourse.
You try and bring that up on Twitter, man, and oh my God, you are just the worst kind of person.
Yeah,
I wish
like
more
I'm
people
pro
realized Twitter wasn't
vax.
real life.
What's
Go
that?
ahead, Yeti. Go ahead. I just said I wish people would realize that Twitter isn't real life, but
Yeah.
I digress. Go ahead, Yeti.
No, I was gonna say, like, I'm pro vaccine. Like, I understand the science of vaccines, but I sure as hell don't trust governments. So
Exactly.
it's like I
It's
trust
like
science, but I don't trust the person telling me about the science.
it's like everybody that uh, isn't taking this one vaccine, they're being called anti-vaxxers.
Right.
Now, anti-vaxxers make up an estimated 9% of the population. Okay, those are your measles guys and your
Yeah.
polio guys.
Smallpox.
That's
And all that.
9%.
Yeah.
50% of our population is still yet to be fully vaxxed for COVID. So
Yeah.
you're telling me that these outliers, this 41% of the population has been all of a sudden converted into anti-vaxxers?
And this is
Or
the
are
sort of
they just skeptical?
This is the sort of thing that, and I'm kind of glad I said I wish people realized Twitter wasn't real life, because this is the sort of thing that the craze that social media has created, because it's really easy to lump a disagreement into a category of hate. So if you didn't like the new Star Wars movies, you're a sexist because the main character's a girl. No other reasons matter, you're a sexist. If you didn't agree with particular political opinion A, you're a racist. Or if you did agree with Trump in any capacity, as small or as big as possible, you're just a racist, regardless of what argument you may have. If you didn't, support Obama completely 100% with a blindfold on, you're a racist because he was a black president. And if you didn't support Elizabeth Warren or Marianne Williamson or Kamala Harris, you're just a sexist, and in some cases a sexist racist. I mean, Spittin', we've been in how many Twitter conversations where people will criticize Kamala Harris for something. Oh, you just hate her because she's a black woman, and both of those things scare you.
Yeah.
So this is the next thing. If you have legitimate hesitation, you're like, hey man, it's not that I don't like the vaccine or think it's a good idea. It's just that we don't really have this went from this is 2 years out to we have it in 3 months. And I'm a little skeptical as to why. What did they skip? Did they skip? We don't have the testing, we don't have the peer review, we don't have the approval, whatnot. And that's a legitimate concern. Somebody can come to you and present that and say, look, I just don't want to put anything in my body until there's been some time that's gone by and we sort of know what's going to happen.
Well, that's part of the FDA process, is part science.
Right.
That's part of the science.
But just the concern on a principle level of somebody saying, hey, I just don't want to put something in my body till I know a little bit more about it. The same people who would judge you for that turn around and go, you shouldn't drink soda because it's full of sugar and gluten and, high fructose corn syrup. You know what I mean? It's the same concept of look, I'm ultimately a defender of bodily autonomy, and I recognize that it gets a little murky when you're dealing with a highly contagious virus that jumps from person to person. I'm not dumb. I recognize that, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily interested in the idea of policing what somebody puts into their body to a certain extent. So, like, that is one of the more gray areas when it comes to bodily autonomy, because I recognize like a need for a polio vaccine and a need for a measles vaccine, and why a school might not want an unvaccinated child carrying diseases in its proximity. Like, I understand all of that completely.
Mhm.
It's about that line as to where do you get to make laws, right? Like, where do you get to decide that we're allowed to persecute this? You're allowed to prevent somebody from being out in public without something. It's about finding that line for me.
Mhm.
Where do you walk the line between I get to choose what I put in my body and what you're not putting in your body may affect the public well-being? That's a very
Yeah.
difficult conversation. And I
Well, and I think
respect
that
people who
would
want to
be
have that.
I think that would be a lot easier if there was more trust in government.
Yeah.
But since there's basically none,
Yeah.
Well, give me a reason.
That's
yeah,
true.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like the other thing that I'm running into on all this bullshit is because I'm with you, but I'm like, you know, uh, like what happened to my body, my choice?
Right.
Once again, Democrats skew the line on Me Too because you know the Andrew because they're a Cuomo sexual and anti-Trumper. It's like oh my God, we need a Me Too Trump and well, what about Andrew Cuomo? No, he's probably being set up by Trump.
Mhm.
And like I come into these threads, man, and it's like uh if you in any way try and say like, man, these vaccine passports are fascism, and that's why France and Germany and UK are all in the streets protesting them because
Yeah.
they get it. And
Yeah.
then
Especially
you get
Germany.
called, yeah, and then you get called a Trumper because of it. Okay, so this happened to me last night. I got called a Trumper because and then told just shut the fuck up and take your shot. And I'm like,
I
dude,
love how the guy
I'm
that
fully
hangs out with
vaxxed.
Obama is called a Trumper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I
Well,
get
they
called
don't
a
even
Trumper all the time, and I have fucking socialist Satanist in my profile. I don't know how to tell you that I'm not a Republican any better than those two labels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Socialist Satanists don't
Oh,
typically
you
go to the
stupid
RNC.
socialist for Trump.
Yeah,
What?
Yeah.
yeah. There's not too
What?
many Satanists at the RNC. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, like, so last night, I got so fucking mad arguing with these just people that are just, I mean, there is no changing their mind. So why are you trying to change mine?
Right.
By
With
shaming
lesser
me.
information.
Yeah, by just spewing out some mainstream media talking points over and over again. And so like they all think, every one of them all thinks that everybody that is not getting the vaccine is a Republican.
Yeah.
And not only just a Republican, but they are QAnon.
Yeah, it must
Okay.
be like an ego thing.
Well,
It's
it's
just
to go full circle.
misinformed. They're
To
misinformed.
And some of it is misinformation, but to go full circle on 2 points, like I said earlier, I'm not sure it's all incompetence as much as some of it is maliciousness. And also, we talked at the top of this when it came to Cuomo about how I think there are a lot of people who are in this game for the attention and the clout as opposed
Yep.
to the actual issues. So when I look at this, I think there are enough people out there who had basic fundamental principles that they likely formed on their own, such as I think gay people are just fine and should be allowed to get married. I think, that maybe we should help the poor. And I think that, religion shouldn't really dictate government. Like really basic things that the Democrats have been associated with, right or wrong, for a long time.
Yeah.
And then social media blew up because really we went from 2006, the best thing you had was like shitty YouTube, to like 2010 Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, Tumblr, all these websites, YouTube in its like a better state. All of a sudden, all these people had information, and not just information, they had misinformation, disinformation, contradictory opinions, new like reinforcement positions. And there has never been a greater invention for the political bubble than Twitter, because you can just not follow anybody you disagree with and block them systematically, ignore their evidence or their information or their arguments, and just follow like-minded, like-speaking, lockstep people with your own opinion, and never be faced with a controversy, never be faced with another thought, never be faced with an outside opinion. And when you do that long enough, you start to do the same thing that cults do when they cut themselves off from the rest of the world, and you start to kind of go a little insane and drink your own Kool-Aid. You start to think that, yes, I am the only one who gets it. I am right. I am big and strong and brave, and I understand that people who disagree with me are all wrong.
Yeah. That's actually one of the reasons I don't block people on Twitter.
Yeah. The only time I block people is if they're truly unreachable. And when I say that, I mean like you can come to them with like somebody will say, okay, now do Trump. All right. And then, you go and you're like, look, man, I'm more than happy to talk about Trump, but right now we're talking about Biden. We just want to address this particular situation. When we're done with this situation, we can talk about Trump, but are you going to be receptive to the possibility that the person you support might be a bad person?
Yeah.
Trump is worse. Okay, I acknowledge that Trump had more cases, and by proxy that might in some strange way classify as worse, but that doesn't delegitimize the case that we're addressing here. And at the moment, this person is in charge, so we're doing this because it's topical and it's relevant, and we need to bring light to the fact that the other side has its own problems. So if we talk about how bad Trump is, do I have your word that you'll participate honestly in this conversation after you do Trump? Okay, thanks for coming.
That's where we're going.
So, and I do want to wrap up soon because we're pushing 2 hours, but I just like my whole point in bringing all of that up was just, it's really easy to get on Twitter and assume that it's, oh, this person just needs time. They just need to have their mind open and see a different perspective. And they're probably raised this way, and they're digging their heels in, so to speak. But that we know, I mean, you look at that, like Brooklyn Dad, right? Like he was paid for his opinions to be what they are. Like they're not all organic. He was paid to present certain information regarding certain topics about certain people in certain ways. We know this. It came out. He had to defend it publicly, and he did a shit fuck job. We know that there are people who are paid reply guys like the Krasensteins who go into fucking Republican Twitters and just drop shit. Like they're paid to go to every single tweet all the time and drop their shit. And that's why they got banned from a lot of platforms, because they were doing the same thing that Brooklyn Dad was doing, where they're getting paid to promote certain things. Yeah. So we know that we know that exists. Okay. Yeah. And it exists on both sides. Who was that guy that just got banned from Twitter last night? Aubrey Huff. Aubrey Huff. Yeah.
The baseball player.
Yeah. So we know that this sort of shit happens on both sides because money makes people do things they wouldn't do for free. And in this case, money makes people have opinions that they wouldn't have on their own. I wouldn't be shocked. And I'll tell you this straight up. I wouldn't be shocked if I went to a party one day and I ran into someone like Sean Hannity and he came up to me and I said, Sean, how do you get on TV and say all this awful shit? And he says, oh, I don't believe it. They just pay me to say it. And I looked in his eyes and he genuinely meant it.
They
be shocked at all.
Do. Like they just be like,
and so,
oh, this is just television, man.
Tucker Carlson started on MSNBC.
Yes, he did. And he went to CNN and was on Hardball before he fucking jumped over to Fox. So why would I not believe that's the case on Twitter too? You think that, I mean, like if you're out there, do you really think that the people who figured out that televised news being in your home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week was effective wouldn't also figure out that paid plants on social media that you browse in your free and spare time, constantly portraying the same information to you, wouldn't be as effective? Come on, man. Like, let's not
Yeah.
be dumb.
Even
You
more
can be
so today.
stupid, but let's not be dumb.
Even more so today. Like DirecTV, for instance, I mean, they've had a terrible couple of years. They're down to less than 5 million homes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh.
Now I'm sure Comcast is a lot more, but we have DirecTV, so I can just use that for instance.
Yeah.
And but Twitter, what is it, man? 5 billion downloads.
Yeah. Something like that.
So 5 million homes that are watching CNN on DirecTV.
Yeah. And you
As
assume that
opposed to
it's going to
5
be,
billion.
and you assume it's going to be divided too, because not all 5 million are watching Fox or watching NBC or watching CNN.
Oh,
So-
totally. Yes, totally,
Yeah.
totally. Their ratings are just all terrible.
Whereas any one of the 5 billion people that have Twitter can see all 3 or 4 or 5 sides of an argument in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
so yeah, it is a very powerful platform.
so look, guys, we've talked a lot about a lot today, and I think my favorite is when I learned something I didn't know. So I'm sure you guys enjoyed telling me about the 60-day business, because that was a genuine reaction you got out of me. That was not put on at all. Trust me if you want or not. I might have been paid for that opinion. So
I'll send you the check for 10 cents.
you're welcome, Yeti.
It's Canadian, by the way.
Ah, fuck. That's like nothing in America money. So
It's like negative $3.
that's like I
You
owe
owe me
you
money.
I was gonna say I owe you after that transaction. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I had a fucking great time. I think we actually hit on a lot of really good stuff and some stuff I wasn't even considering, and I'm sure the same goes for you two as well. So I want to thank you guys as always for being part of this. I am so glad I stumbled into that thread at that Arby's that one day. I was at Arby's when I joined that
I
thread
love
with you
Arby's.
two.
I hated
I
it when I
know.
was younger.
I know.
Now, whenever we go to Edmonton, we always stop at the Arby's.
There's a running meme about, like, I guess people don't like Arby's. I guess that's like a pretty people are like, this is gross old people food. Who eats this shit? And there's
It
a
used
running
to be horrible. It
There's a
used to be the
well, yeah.
shittiest restaurant.
there's a running meme about like who keeps that in business. So I had like a curly fries thing in my car, and I made a little TikTok where I was like, you ever drive past an Arby's and wonder who's keeping that in business? And then I held it up to my face and I was like, me.
It's me.
I am. It's just me. So
It's just me and this one Canadian guy I know.
yeah, I keep them all in business. But yeah, I'm really glad I stumbled into that thread, because I've met two really smart, like-minded individuals who are able to talk, which is rare. So I want to
My
thank.
mom used to tell me that I talk just to hear my own voice.
You know what? I do the same thing. And I'll tell you what. I sound fucking great. Let me just say.
I sound completely different than what I actually sound like, because my vocal cords were damaged by a breathing tube when I had my transplant.
Yeah.
So I sound like a relatively normal voice. It just comes out as Satan.
You know what I gotta say? I'm actually like low key terrified of that happening to me at some point in my life, because I'm a singer, and like I
figures.
my voice is like a little. It's deteriorating a little bit over the last year. Like it's there, it comes and goes, it hits in waves, and I know that it's either due to the acid reflux or that I have some kind of growth on there, and I'm desperately afraid that at some point they're gonna stick something down my throat for some medical reason, and when I wake up, I'm never gonna be able to sing again. So like I feel for you there, brother. I really do.
Well, mine was in for like a month.
But even so,
Because I was
like,
unconscious. So it was,
even so, it may be an irrational fear, but that doesn't mean it's not there. You know what I'm saying?
no, and I
Sorry,
get the
guys.
singing thing because my dad was actually an actor
Yeah.
and was a really good singer. So I would have had a voice like my dad.
Right.
And that's what it sounds like in my head. But then I hear it on a recording and I was like, oh, right.
Well, the good news is if you ever choose to be Jigsaw, it'll be very easy.
I'm waiting for someone to just pick me up to do voiceovers for Satan.
If you want to do voiceovers for my wrestling show, I'd be happy to have you.
Yeah, sure.
So,
I'll
all
do
right.
it.
With that being said, I want to thank you guys both for jumping in. It was a great time. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did making this episode. For those of you
Oh,
who
I did.
yeah. For those of you who are interested, make sure you follow us on Twitter at DifficultPod. Keep your eyes open. In the description link, there will be a link to a Discord server, which is the Elite City Media Discord, which covers all of my little projects, including my Twitch channel and my wrestling channel and my music, as well as a few other small things. So there's political discussions. You can continue that in there. We post clips and videos and talk in there, and we'll be picking that up more and more as time goes by. But furthermore, keep your eyes on this YouTube channel because we're going to start doing these live pretty soon, which means that we'll be able to take real-time comments and real-time information on all different positions and spectrums and talk to people in the audience and whatnot. So I look forward to being able to do that because I think that'll be a really good way to do it. And I'm also going to be trying to reach out to certain people and set up some interviews. So for example, whenever we see a progressive candidate running for office, maybe try to get a hold of them.
Yeah.
Or if we get an author that writes a good book, maybe try to grab them. You know what I mean? Because I think interviews are something that people do listen to.
Yeah.
Do want to hear. And I'm not opposed to doing confrontational interviews either, where we bring somebody on who's published things that we disagree with and grilling him on it and seeing if he's up to snuff or she's up to snuff or whatever the case.
Oh, I love stuff like that.
Respectfully, of course, because I'm not an asshole. Like, I'm not just going to bring on, like, you know, Tucker Carlson and be like, so, Tucker, why are you a piece of shit, right? Like, I'm not going to, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like that. It would
What
be like...
made you a white supremacist?
Yeah, was it the skin? Was it the skin, or was it because your black neighbor beat you in basketball? So, because you can't jump. So... You know, like what it would be like we bring on somebody who maybe is a hard, staunch capitalist, maybe like a liberal that's a capitalist, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody who's on the left, but they still believe in capitalism. And I could go, so you talked about this particular thing in your article, and here's your references from it. Now, we happen to have this source, which says this. So when we compared the two sources, this is the truth we found. What do you think about that information? And I think that is a healthy thing. Because then not only does it push the author out of his bubble, but it pushes his fans out of theirs. And for all we know, it might push us out of ours. Maybe somebody comes to us with something really fucking compelling, and I'm like, shit, I don't know what to say to that.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so I think it's healthy on both sides, and it's something I'd like to do in the future. So with that being said, I do want to thank everybody who tuned in to this week's episode of Difficult Realities. We hope we will get you back for more. This is a project that I'm glad is off the rails, so to speak. I should say on the rails, but it's off the rails too. I'm glad we're able to actually get in here and do this because I've been wanting to do political stuff for a very long time. So thank you so much again, Spittin' and Yeti. Thank you to everybody who listened, and we will see you on the next episode of Difficult Realities. I am Swerve. Have yourselves a good night, and remember to keep your eyes open. Thank you so much.
Cheers.